What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. Today is another edition, week 26 of your NASCAR weekly predictions. Sorry it's coming out a day late. I had some technical difficulties getting it uploaded yesterday, but then some news broke that's going to be in storylines after I was trying to upload it after I recorded it, and I added some more in. So I hope, maybe we can find some solace in that together. So sorry it's only getting out one day ahead of the Cup race. But like I said, I had some technical difficulties, and it ended up being a good thing because I got to talk about another piece of news in the episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. Storylines going into Richmond. SVG wins a road course. Again, for the fourth time in a row, fourth road course in a row this season we've raced. Didn't win the first one at Coda, so one left with the Roval. What's there to be said that hasn't been said? Everybody knows he's an incredible road course racer, arguably already the best of all time. It just absolutely just seems better than the field, and probably because that's the case. There's people that can match him for a small amount of laps, or they can match him if there's a little bit of a tire advantage. But over the long course of a race and evening out strategies, there has not been anybody in the field that can consistently compete with him, and that's rare. With this win, is he now a threat to advance into the playoffs? Not just advance like into the playoffs, but like through the playoffs. Like, how far can he reasonably get? I don't think he's good enough to make the championship four. I don't think anybody thinks that. He still has a long way to go in ovals. And yeah, he's getting better, but he's still not good. Certainly not good enough to compete with some of the upper echelon drivers. This is what I will say, though. He has 22 playoff points racked up already. Maybe he can find a way to win a stage at Daytona. He's probably entering in with 22 stage points. That's going to put him 7th or 8th, like well into the top 10. Like probably in the top half of drivers on playoff points. It depends on how some of the regular season point standings work out. So that he's going to have a little bit of a cushion where he doesn't necessarily have to run top 10 all day, every day, especially because only 10 cars can get stage points, and there's 16 cars in the playoffs in that first round. So not everybody's going to be riding around getting points. Not everybody's going to be getting good finishes. That's just a fact of the matter. If he can find a way to just be in that 15th to 20th place every week with his playoff cushion, and then you take into account DNFs and everything, he can make it through, guys. Like, he doesn't need to be outstanding to make it through the round of 12. Okay? And I don't know if you know this or not, but the races in the round of 16, Darlington, Worldwide Technology, and Bristol. Now, that's a hard group of three, especially Bristol and Darlington. And maybe he hasn't been the best at some of those type of tracks, but he's getting better. So if he can figure out a way to survive the carnage, he can make it through the round of 16. And if he does make it through the round of 16, the path is pretty clear in the round of 12 with the Roval on there. Yes, the Roval is the most oval-like of all the road courses. It's one all the NASCAR drivers are comfortable with. It's one of the ones that they drive the best with. But I feel like for both Sonoma and Watkins Glen, everybody's like, oh, well, these tracks have been in the Cup Series for a long time. These drivers know how to get around. Surely it can't be that easy for SVG. And then he proceeded to go out there at Sonoma and Watkins Glen and absolutely rinse everybody else in the field. So it very much is possible that he does the same thing at the Roval. Look, I give him like a 50-50, maybe a 40-60% chance of making it through the round of 16. But the point cushion he's going to have is going to make it a heck of a lot easier and give him a little bit more margin of error. And that should be scary because you could be looking at SVG outside the top 20 in points, but in the round of 8 in the playoffs. Again, I'm not saying it's 100% going to happen, just saying it's possible. Wanted to mention this. Chase Elliott's streak is over. He had finished in the top 20 of every single race to start the season. I believe he either beat the record by one or tied his own record from last year. So, shows you how difficult it is to continuously get top 20s, and it shows why he's where he is in the regular season point standings, even without maybe some of the elite win or elite speed and all the stage wins. I think Byron might have already locked up the regular season. Yes, Daytona is Daytona, and you can always wreck and all of that stuff can happen. But William Byron has what, 3 wins at Daytona, 2 500s, and then he won to make it in 2021, I think. The last race of the regular season. Guys, like, he has 41 points on Chase Elliott. This race was so close. This regular season point championship was so close just a couple weeks ago, and now William Byron has had a couple good weeks in a row, and all of a sudden he's 41 points up on second place and over 80 points up the next 3 closest guys. So he's really, really kind of stretched the lead out in a short period of time. And it's going to be very, very difficult for Chase Elliott to catch him. I don't think anybody other than Chase Elliott, who's in second place, 42, not 41, 42 points back, can catch him. Chase Elliott's going to need some help catching William Byron at that. William Byron might already have the regular season points locked up. Even if he hasn't technically clinched yet, it's going to be pretty darn difficult. The car, I don't want to keep harping on this. I just want to mention, I think the racing at Watkins Glen was some of the worst racing at Watkins Glen we've seen in a long time, and I think it's the car. Again, it's the same thing as always. You can't freaking pass on that first long green flag run. How many guys after you trade places on the restart, they just stayed in the position that they were in after the restart. NASCAR has got to figure this out. It's embarrassing and ridiculous that this continues to be a problem. And I feel like in the past, they've been a lot more willing to work on cars, work on generations of cars to make the racing better, to make the car better. And it just doesn't seem like they've been willing to do that as much with the next-gen car. I don't know why, but it's not good for the sport. I really, really hope NASCAR stops being stubborn and figures this out. Obviously, some big news. Connor Zilic falls, hurts himself. It looked like it could have been really, really bad. So it's going to sound weird when I say this, but he only broke a collarbone. That's still not great. Obviously, mainly an Xfinity driver, but presumably he's going to be in Cup next year and was supposed to race in Cup this week, but because of the injury, he obviously couldn't. And, and they just didn't race because Red Bull is particular about who drives the Red Bull car, and if it wasn't going to be Zilic, it wasn't going to be anybody, I guess. Hocevar can't stand at headlines. Obviously, he had some drama with both his teammate Michael McDowell, some other guys. And then Todd Gilliland. You pick up the radio with Todd Gilliland at the end of the race on the in-car camera, and apparently he's giving Todd Gilliland a break, letting him off the hook, which in some ways I guess makes sense. Maybe he isn't, this public persona where he doesn't care. He's going to wreck you if he has to, whatever. Maybe he's starting to try and shed that persona, and I would expect him to maybe continue to mend some fences so the entire field isn't always pissed off with him. And then number 8, the piece of news that I was alluding to at the beginning. NASCAR going to Dover for the All-Star race? That makes no sense in any way, shape, or form. Hey, Dover, you can say, oh, well, maybe it hasn't always been the most interesting racing, or, oh, they haven't been selling. They used to sell out all the grants. Like, the entire track used to be sold out, and it's not sold out as much. But if you want to sell out races, maybe you should, there's some other steps you can take, because Dover used to always be sold out. I digress. Maybe but let's just look at it. The All-Star race is always, always, always a nighttime race. Dover ain't got no lights. I'm pretty sure Dover has a hard curfew where they got to be out of there, right? If Dover ain't got no lights, how are you going to do the nighttime race for the All-Star race? Because, quite frankly, the All-Star race needs to be at night. I think it adds a certain allure. It always has been. It's just moving the All-Star race to the day seems like an awful, awful idea to me. And also, here's my thing. I understand that maybe they want to give New Wilkesboro a points race. I'm all for that. I love nostalgia. I love bringing NASCAR back to its roots. The racing ain't that great at North Wilkesboro. At least Dover, it's good. Yeah, maybe not great, but like the last 2 years, the All-Star race hadn't been great. A lot of the complaints of the next-gen car stay happening at North Wilkesboro. So I don't really know, if that's the case or what, but we could always move it to Charlotte. It's not like that hasn't been done before. Get rid of the Roval. Maybe we can move the All-Star race somewhere else. I don't know, but going to Dover. Plus, you have to think. It's funny, you want, in a lot of ways, I want NASCAR to go back to their roots, but and they have a little bit, but they also have been in this era I feel like the last couple of years of trying to go to new cities, new places, expand the fan base, take the sport to places it hasn't really gone before, and reach out to new people in new areas of the country. Listen, NASCAR's been going to Dover since the 70s. I mean, and it used to be, maybe a little bit better of a race now, but again, the next gen car, I think, is the bigger problem. But Dover is such a unique course that is long time NASCAR history. If you want to say, oh, bring back North Wilkesboro, even if it means getting rid of Dover, then you don't actually care about the history of NASCAR, in my opinion. Secondly, Dover, like I said, been in the sport a long time, but it's in an area of a very unique area of the country where you pull people from hours around the come. I love the Southeast. NASCAR is a Southeast sport. That's the most loyal part of their fan base. 100% agree with that. But think of all of the point races that already exist in the Southeast. If NASCAR is all about expanding and trying to go to new places and keep the sport in areas where new people will come out, maybe you need to reinvent the car. Maybe you need to reinvent ways to get people to Dover. But let me give you a large list of cities that are within, let's just say, 5 hours of Dover. Washington, D.C. In fact, Washington, D.C., it's about equidistant between Richmond and Dover, might be closer to Dover. Baltimore, Philadelphia, all of New Jersey, New York City, all of these massive cities in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast constantly come to the Dover races. I've been to the Dover races before, and I've seen it. And I just think, like for New York City and a lot of places in the Northeast, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Watkins Glen is a far drive. Like Dover's kind of equidistant, and Dover's easier to get to in some ways. All I'm saying is Dover has history, and it's in a place where NASCAR doesn't get a chance to go to a lot and brings in people from an area that NASCAR doesn't go to a lot. It balances both things that NASCAR wants to do, should want to do. Why would you take away a points-paying race from Dover? It makes absolutely no sense. I'll get off of my soapbox. Let me know in the comments what you think about that idea. Again, not confirmed, just it broke last night as like, hey, this is a thing that could potentially happen. All right, sorry, I've spent too long on storylines. Let's get into the actual interesting pieces here. Recent winners at Richmond. One of these guys is retired. Denny Hamlin won the first next-gen race. Kevin Harvick won 4 months later in August. Kyle Larson wins the spring race. Chris Buescher wins the summer race in 2023. Denny Hamlin wins the spring race again. And then the infamous incident from last season, all the drama late season drama at Richmond last year when Austin Dillon won, wrecking both Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin. He was fast, arguably the fastest car on the track, but you can't lose spots on a restart and then decide to punt one guy off into the corner and then right rear another one coming off of it to win the race. Put NASCAR in a tough spot. Maybe we'll see some similar fireworks this weekend. Best average finish. Who would have thought? Denny Hamlin, the guy with 2 wins here, averaging a top 5. Christopher Bell hasn't won here, but still has a great average finish of 7.3. Kyle Larson at 8.2, and then Joey Logano and Chase Elliott, 2 more champions, Joey Logano being a 3-time champion with an average finish of 9.2. Then obviously Barry hasn't raced here enough for me to want to put him on this list, but his average finish is 9. And then good old Kevin Harvick, living up retirement with an average finish of 4.5. Richmond, this is also their first year of being a one-race racetrack. As you can see, for a long time, including the last 3 next-gen years, they have had 2 races. This is the only race at Richmond this season. Most top 5s, Denny Hamlin, 5 of the 6 races they've had here in the next-gen, he's gotten top 5. Kevin Harvick, again, retired, but he felt it was important to mention he has had 3 top 5s. Kyle Larson also has had 3 top 5s. Then 6 drivers have 2 top 5s here. Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., who this is his first year of retirement, Chris Buescher, and Ross Chastain. Most top 10s, a lot of the same names, familiar names. 2 drivers tied at 5, Hamlin and Bell. Who would have thought the guys with the most top 10s have the best average finishes? 4 tied at 4, Harvick and Truex, who are retired, and then Kyle Larson and Joey Logano. And then 5 tied at 3, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, and Austin Dillon. And on that list of 5 drivers tied at 3 top 10, so guys who have had speed here before, I see 4 drivers that would absolutely love a win because 3 of those 4 are out of the playoffs and 1 is on the bubble. RCR and RFK, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, and Austin Dillon. Maybe keep those 2 race teams and those drivers in mind this weekend, but I'll get into that. Well, right now, favorites to win at Michigan. Team rankings. As usual, Joe Gibbs and Hendrick Motorsports are 1-2, but I actually like Joe Gibbs racing a little bit more than Hendrick Motorsports this week. I still think somebody like William Byron is going to be fast. He was just fast at Iowa, but historically speaking, he's not great at Richmond. You know Kyle Larson's going to be good. You know Chase Elliott loves a short track, but Denny Hamlin is so good at Richmond. It's his playground. It's his home state. He's already said he's going to have a lot of family in. It could be a Denny Hamlin kind of weekend. Loves this track. Christopher Bell is also really, really good at it. Martin Truex has some speed in the past. We'll see if that carries over with Chase Briscoe in the 19 team. I like Joe Gibbs Racing a little bit more than Hendrick Motorsports, and this might be the first time all season that Hendrick Motorsports has back-to-back weeks where I don't have them ranked as the favorite to win. Team Penske has struggled a little bit, especially outside of Ryan Blaney. But Team Penske loves short tracks. They're very good at this type of track. Ryan Blaney, I think, is going to be very fast here. Joey Logano has won here and could have won last year. Team Penske, I think, could be getting back on track this weekend, going into the last race of the regular season. RFK, another Ford team that loves these small tracks, loves this type of racing. Brad Keselowski was obviously really fast 2 weeks ago at Iowa. Chris Buescher has won here. Ryan Preece, different team, but it was still in a Ford a couple years ago with Stewart-Haas Racing. Ryan Preece in that Ford had what at the time was his best career finish, running 3rd at Richmond and having some speed. So RFK Racing arguably could be higher here, but I think RFK has 3 drivers, and all 3 of those drivers at RFK have a legitimate and real chance to win this race, and all 3 of them need it. And then Richard Childress Racing, this was close. I wanted to put 23XI here because Bubba Wallace has been so fast, and he's usually pretty good at short tracks. Tyler Reddick, we know what type of driver he is. But I want it to be – I think Richard Childress has their back up against a wall, but neither of their drivers were going to make it unless they win a race. They showed up here struggling all summer last year and then came up with some speed at Richmond. I think it could be a very similar thing this year with their back up against the wall. So I went ahead and said, you know what, Richard Childress Racing, the blue-collar team, not really blue-collar, is going to have speed this weekend. And if I'm wrong, then 23XI would normally be my 5th pick, but I'll give it to RCR because I got a feeling this weekend. Driver rankings. Well, a lot of these are going to be self-explanatory. I already said why Denny Hamlin my favorite. Kyle Larson definitely needs to get something going. I think this is the week he's going to get it going again. He's kind of sputtering. He started to get it going, and then last week had a bad week. I think Kyle Larson's going to be in good shape this weekend. Hasn't won a race in a while. Ryan Blaney loves these short tracks. He's been consistently one of the fastest cars all season on every type of track, including winning a pole last week at Watkins Glen. Look out for Ryan Blaney. Christopher Bell, talked about him already. Joey Logano, never count him out at this track, especially in Penske equipment. Bottom of this list is where it starts to get interesting. Brad Keselowski, again, Iowa and Richmond are kind of similar. Ford seems, especially RFK and Penske, seem to be fast at these short tracks. Brad loves these short tracks. Brad Keselowski's won at Richmond 2 times before, although both were with Team Penske. But Brad, I think, has been bringing speed more consistently in that 6 car. Needs a win to get in. I think Brad is a very, very real contender to win this week. Chase Elliott, I think, should be a top 10 car all week. Maybe he gets another streak going. Chris Buescher, somebody that won here at Richmond and then won at Daytona a couple years ago going into the playoffs, to get him into the playoffs, getting him some points. We could be seeing something similar here this year. Buescher he doesn't need a win. He can point his way in, but one new driver to win a race, and he's all of a sudden on the wrong side of the cut line. Chris Buescher would love nothing more than to lock himself into the playoffs. Because last year he was in a similar situation where he was really good on points. Too many winners, and he got booted out. So Chris Buescher doesn't want to take that chance again. Ryan Preece still looking for his first Cup Series victory. He's having a great season, best season of his career on points. He loves this type of short track. That's where he cut his teeth getting into NASCAR. Ryan Preece should have some speed trying to make his first ever playoff appearance. And then William Byron hasn't been great here, but William Byron is quietly, maybe not quietly, he won a race, but he's put together a lot of good weeks speed-wise in a row. I think for a while they were performing worse than what they should have been. I think William Byron has a good week this week and maybe even locks up the regular season points championship because if they bring the right speed. And I just think that he's finally going to have a good run at Richmond. Historically speaking, Hendricks Motorsports, again, they love short tracks as well. And I think that the 24 team is going to come ready to go this weekend. A couple other names that were just off this list. Both of the RCR guys, I think Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch. I talked about RCR already. I think they could be really fast. I still have a little bit of doubt to that, so I didn't want to quite, go all the way in. Both of them are barely off of this list. Chase Briscoe historically hasn't done well at Richmond, but he also hasn't been in good equipment. He's shown this year that places where the 19 was fast before he got there, he's able to either find more speed or kind of still be the same type of driver. He's still usually pretty good on short track, so I think Briscoe maybe has a good week this week, but I'm still not 100% confident. But so Busch, Dillon, and Briscoe are three guys that just were off this list that I think could also be competitors this weekend. Regular season standings. I'm not going to go through all of these drivers, just some interesting spots. Again, William Byron, 42-point lead over Chase Elliott. William Byron, the only driver over 800 points right now, which is why I think he might have already locked up the regular season standings. Elliott has some breathing room behind him, but also has a ways to go to get to Byron. And then third, fourth, and fifth, all fighting for playoff points. Hamlin in third, breaking up the Hendrick top three. Bell and Larson tied with 727 points. Those drivers are separated by 4 points. And as you can see at the bottom, every position you gain from third to 10th is 1 extra point. So those guys are really going to be duking it out, especially because now Ryan Blaney, he's only 17 back of Bell and Larson. Blaney, if he doesn't have some of the motor problems or some of the unlucky DNFs, Blaney could legitimately be the regular season standings leader right now. A lot of bad luck early in the season. Probably should have won some more races, and I think he's averaged something like 45 points a race over the last 3 weeks, which is absolutely ridiculous. And he's past Tyler Reddick, and now he's got Kyle Larson in his sights. There's only 2 weeks left, and there probably won't be a whole bunch of separation with some of these cars. But this top 10 battle is interesting because there's a lot of drivers that are close to each other in clusters. And first and second might already be locked up in a sense, unless somebody really struggles the last 2 weeks. But third through 10th, it's 1 extra playoff point for every position you can gain. And Blaney's trying to run down Larson. Briscoe, who was on the heels of Blaney before these incredible few weeks, Briscoe is still within passing distance of Tyler Reddick. Bowman is kind of like in a similar situation with Elliott, where he could make it to 8th and he could fall to 10th, but he's kind of chilling out there in 9th. Chris Buescher right now, Chris Buescher, just like Alex Bowman, are currently trying to point their way in. Bowman has a little bit of a gap to Buescher, which is nice to have a car between you and the cut line. Bubba Wallace falling outside of the top 10 in points, but he's only 8 back of Chris Buescher, so he can certainly get there and earn that extra playoff point. Ryan Preece, 12th in regular season standings and currently out of the playoffs because drivers like Joey Logano and Ross Chastain behind him have already won a race this year to get in. Ross Chastain didn't fall anymore this week. He has a big gap down the 15. Really, from Ross Chastain down, I don't think any of those drivers can make it into the top 10 in points before the end of the season. And I really think Briscoe and Bowman are feeling good about their chances about finishing top 10. It's just going to come down to where. I would argue that there's really only one spot up for grabs right now in the top 10, and it is 10th place. Kyle Busch on the wrong side of the cut line, but you can see he's way back on points. Cindric locked himself in on points. Got around Ty Gibbs this week. Too bad that doesn't mean anything. Again, Gibbs dropping a place. Allmendinger, who's been in that 15 to 20 range, it feels like all season, not quite close enough to point his way in. Really only has one more chance, and that's winning at Daytona. Brad hasn't been in the top 20 most of the season, got in there after the Iowa race, stayed in there this week. And Carson Hocevar, another driver who had some speed last week, not enough to win the race, but he had the drama that he did with all the spin outs and the rough driving with his teammate. So looking at the playoff standings, how does that translate into the current playoff standings? Denny Hamlin at 24, Kyle Larson at 23, Shane Van Gisbergen at 22. Those are the only three drivers over 20 points. Obviously, Denny Hamlin and Van Gisbergen both have 4 race wins. Larson and Bell both have 3. And then Byron has 2. And I don't think anybody else has more than 1. Remember, you get these playoff points, 5 for winning a race, 1 for winning a stage. And then at the end of the regular season, wherever you are, you could also get more for where you finish. Which means William Byron could be jumping to the top of the field of the playoffs by winning the regular season championship. Ryan Blaney won a stage, got him in up to 11. Cindric has been sitting on 8 for a long time, hasn't gotten a playoff point in a while. Really gets most of those at the super speedways. Chase Briscoe sitting at 7, tied with Bubba Wallace and Joey Logano. And then there's 3 drivers tied at 6, Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, and Josh Berry. Everybody in blue here is currently in the playoffs on points. Reddick at plus 117. He has to feel really good. Hasn't quite clinched. Can clinch the playoff spot this week, especially if there's no new winner. Even if there was, it might not matter too much. But Tyler Reddick got to be feeling good about his chances. Alex Bowman feels all right if there's not a new winner. Obviously, 2 new winners, and there's only 1 person making it on points. There will be at least 1 person making the playoffs on points because there's only 2 races left and 3 guys making it on points right now. And then Chris Buescher made some points up on his teammate Ryan Preece at plus 34. Also got a stage point, so now he has -3 stage point or -3 playoff points instead of -4 and what was -5. Ryan Preece has those 2 playoff points, but again, 34 back of his teammate. Then Kyle Busch 102, Ty Gibbs 125, AJ Allmendinger 129 back. Those guys are too far back to point their way, and they're going to need a win. So the only person that can point their way in that's not in on points right now is Ryan Preece. Moving on to everybody's favorite segment, the driver power rankings. And because there's 2 weeks left, I will refresh everybody on what these colors mean. As you can see, all the drivers are highlighted in a different color. So let me break down the colors before I break down why I have guys where they are for you. Everybody in that dark green that you see are people that are surefire championship contenders year in and year out. The guys that I think have the best probability of winning the championship, and 90% the champion is probably coming from one of those guys. Kind of like in the NFL when you look at teams like, oh, the Eagles are always good, the Chiefs are always good, the Ravens are always good, the Lions are good right now. That kind of thing. Those are your front runners, your best contenders. Everybody in this yellow color, it's kind of that second tier. Teams that are surefire playoff contenders, drivers and teams that should be making the playoffs every single year, at least in my mind. And maybe can make a championship run if they get hot or some things break their way. It's almost kind of like that 1A tier and then that 1B tier. Joey Logano, I'm going to talk about him. He's blue. He has his own color. Why is Joey Logano blue? Well, sorry about this. I think my neighbor's doing some yard work. I don't know if you guys can hear that in the background. I apologize if you can. But Joey Logano is in blue right now. Joey Logano is in blue because he is the biggest wild card in all of NASCAR. He is either really, really good or really, really bad, I feel like. Okay? Joey Logano can look like absolute, like, shouldn't even be in the playoffs. Absolutely terrible. And then win the championship as soon as the playoffs start. Penske's won it the last 3 years, 2 with Logano, 1 with Blaney. Logano, though, he doesn't have the elite speed that a lot of these other guys do. Joey Logano's sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe crap. If you know the meme I'm referring to, he's just a wild card, and he's either going to be in the Final Four with a chance to win the championship, or he's going to be out in the first round. Like, there's no in between for Joey Logano. It feels like. Ryan Preece is his own color here. He's orange. He's orange because he's currently not in the playoffs. But he's orange because I believe he can point his way in. Why is there no more orange guys? Because, as I said earlier, Ryan Preece is the only guy that I think can point his way in. And then this green color Not the dark green, but this yellow green. Some people might call it a lime. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But it's Shane Van Gisbergen, Austin Cindric, and Josh Berry. It's drivers that have won a race to lock themselves in the playoffs, and Shane Van Gisbergen's case multiple. But I don't think they're really a threat once the playoffs start. They're not championship contenders. Probably not going to see them anywhere. If they don't go out the first round, they will be going out. It's kind of like they won a race, and that's kind of their season. Like, happy to be in the playoffs. See you later. Guys that, again, just easiest way to say it, won a race to make it to the playoffs, but they're not a threat to win anything once they get there. And then these red guys are guys that are in the top 20 of power rankings. They're having good seasons, but the only way that they're making the playoffs is if they win a race. So without further ado, William Byron stays number one. He didn't win last week, still had a solid week. He's the regular season points leader. He's finally stacking good weeks after a couple of up and down weeks. And then Ryan Blaney, you could argue road course racing was Ryan Blaney's weakest part of his ability, and he's put together some good drives recently on road courses. Won a pole this week, won a stage this week, finished sixth after a last lap pass that caused him to not finish in the top five. But Ryan Blaney's been really fast recently. He's been fast at Iowa. I think he's going to be really fast this week. I really like Blaney at this track. So Blaney is 2. Denny Hamlin at 3. Didn't have a great week this week at Watkins Glen by any stretch of the imagination. But he's been good at some of these short tracks and other tracks that we've had since our last road course race. He's now up to 3rd in points, and he's got to be the favorite this weekend at Richmond, giving him the bump to 3. Christopher Bell at 4. Runner-up finish this week. I think Christopher Bell really, really has a chance to win this week, and I think they would love to get their 4th win and tie Denny Hamlin and Shane Van Gisbergen for the most wins in the series. Chase Elliott down to 5th. I was expecting more out of Watkins Glen. I mean, out of all the places that Chase Elliott's top 20 streak was going to come to an end, who would have thought it would have been at Watkins Glen, a track he's won at multiple times and used to dominate? Not me. Rough week for Chase Elliott. Down to 5th, still in the top 5, still 2nd in regular season points. Kyle Larson, it feels disrespectful to have him this low, and maybe it's overreactive. He's had 1 or 2 good weeks in a row this summer, but overall kind of still struggling. Had speed this week, but didn't matter after he missed, 6 or 7 laps due to a mechanical issues, having to go behind the wall and get it fixed. Did run the fastest lap of the race, but it doesn't matter when you're that many laps down. Chase Briscoe was somebody I would love to move up this list. But beginning of the year was kind of slow for him, so he's still only 8th in points. Now, he still has a chance to move up 1, maybe 2 spots. He's not that far back off of some of the people in front of him. He's going to have to finish the year with 2 really good performances back-to-back. But power rankings, I don't want to be overreactive because, like, the season-long picture, Chase Briscoe wasn't kind of like a top 6 driver the first part of the season, even though he has been recently. So I don't want to be overreactive to the short term, which is why I don't have him higher. And I'm kind of frustrated with NASCAR. If you go to the app or the website, they have a article out right now about how hot he has been. And this is all information I went and gathered by myself, and everybody thinks I'm going to poach it from NASCAR. Chase Briscoe, the last arguably 6 to 8 weeks, has probably been a top 3, maybe even the best driver in the entire series, both on speed. You look at the amount of points he's collecting, his driver rating. He's actually gained ground I believe he's gained ground on the regular season championship, despite all the race wins and everything going on the last couple races. Like, he's been performing really, really well. He's peaking at the right time, and I want to move him up. But I also want to keep in mind there is a season-long picture of this. This is week 26, so it's great that Chase Briscoe has been great since week 20, but there was 20 other races beforehand, right? So I want to keep that in mind. So all you Chase Briscoe fans, don't get mad at me. I am 100% recognizing that he is supernova hot. Him and Ryan Blaney have probably been the best two drivers, the hottest drivers the last month to 2 months ish, right, in the series. But yeah, I just want to give props to Briscoe. He has been phenomenal. If you want to get into the actual numbers, I'm not going to get into that because this episode is already running longer than it's supposed to. You can go and check all of that stuff out on NASCAR. It was some really good numbers if you're a number person. But yeah, Chase Briscoe has been one of the best, if not the best driver in NASCAR for a good amount of time. And that bodes well for him going into the playoffs. Just want to give that shout out. But that the season-long picture is why I don't have him higher than that. Bubba Wallace, a recent race winner, and all he's done is followed up with good top 10 performances. Bubba Wallace is getting pretty good at road courses. Bubba Wallace, best season yet, I would say, so far for him. And I think, again, another driver that's starting to get hot these last couple weeks. Maybe Bubba Wallace can make a playoff run as well. Tyler Reddick has really struggled as of late. Did get a top 10 last week. I still think Tyler Reddick it's still a matter of when, not if, he gets his first win. I think it's incredibly likely Tyler Reddick wins a race. He should win a race. That's the expectation at his team. I just think that they're just losing a little bit at every place right now. It just seems like they're off. Still got a top 10 this week. I'm incredibly interested to see if maybe they can find some momentum this week or next week going into the playoffs. Chris Buescher back into the top 10 after Alex Bowman after picking up a stage win, a top 5, a great points day for Chris Buescher. Still behind Alex Bowman in points, but had a better week than Bowman, at least I would argue, going into a track where I think Buescher should outrun Alex Bowman. Ryan Preece, Alex Bowman is in 11th. Again, top 10 in points right now. He's 9th. Putting together some more solid races. He had that really, really hot stretch, and it was like he was either getting a top 10 or finishing outside the top 20. Now I think he's balancing it out a little bit recently, having some solid performances, some more consistent performances. Bowman could be a threat to win a race in the playoffs and see himself advance. Ryan Preece, I've talked about him a lot this episode, so I'm not going to spend too much time on him. But Ryan Preece, 12th in my power rankings, 12th in the regular season points. Real threat during the best season of his career so far to win a race. Joey Logano, not a great performance last week, but he's not necessarily the greatest road course driver in the history of the world. Should be a threat this week. And again, all Joey Logano has to do is make the dance, and he can win, proving that last year with the worst average finish position to ever win a championship. Ross Chastain had speed last week, got some points, maybe didn't get the finish he thought that he deserved because he was probably the second fastest car on the racetrack for certain pieces of that race. Definitely at the third. So maybe finding speed on the road course, even if Trackhouse is normally good on road courses, maybe that can give him some confidence. He's done well at short tracks before. Ross Chastain needs to start building some momentum back up before the playoffs start. Shane Van Gisbergen is here because he won the race. That's all. He's still, I think, like 24th or 25th in points, and he's won 4 freaking races, everybody. Do you know how bad you have to be, how much you've had to have struggled at all the other tracks if you've won 4 races and you're not even top 20 in points and barely top 25? I'm not going to get on that rant again. Probably the best road course racer of all time. He's 15th because that was his 4th road course win, but I can't stomach putting him ahead of any of these other drivers who are having much better seasons. Kyle Busch, he's kind of been in this 15 to 20 range like the entire year. A lot of the times he has speed, it seems like he or his team makes a mistake or they get into some type of accident or wreck. And now Busch is down the 2 races where he's going to miss the playoffs for the second consecutive season, something he's never done. Time is running out for that team. Cindric with another solid day. Maybe he finally was showing some of that road course prowess he's supposed to have last week. Was kind of running in that 8th to 12th, 8th to 15th range all week this week. And again, just a solid finish. Didn't hear his name a lot. Ty Gibbs, had some interesting radio communications. Obviously, they had this place. Gibbs usually is pretty good on road courses, and Joe Gibbs builds good road course cars. They felt like this was a chance they had to win. You heard the radio communications between Ty Gibbs and his crew chief, Chris Gabehart. They didn't sound the best. It sounds like that team knows the stress is on, and maybe they're starting to capitulate a little bit. Ty Gibbs has 2 more chances to win a race to make the playoffs. Still hasn't won a race over 100 starts in his Cup Series career with the second best team in NASCAR. AJ Allmendinger, right outside the top 10. Everybody thought this could be the race. Allmendinger finally wins a road course because he's won at Watkins Glen multiple times before. It seems like the field is starting to get better at road courses, and they're starting to get more speed. And in a Kaulig car, if you don't have an advantage in one of those two ways, it's hard to outrun a lot of the other teams, and I think that is starting to happen with them on road courses. And then Josh Berry, and just kind of a whatever week, but there's nobody that deserves to be in front of him as far as I'm concerned. So I will give him the 20th spot, and he has good performances at this track, and he's going to need it because they've really, really struggled since winning that race all the way back in March. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your days, your weeks, and your lives for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know in the comments below your favorites to win this week, your predictions. What do you think the field of 16 is going to be? Come follow me on X. It's a fun time. Maybe there's a hurricane coming right for Richmond this weekend. Who knows? Probably not. Kind of hard for a hurricane to come for a city that's not on the coast. I'm just being silly. More preseason football this weekend. MLB playoff races are heating up. So everybody, as I like to say, find a couch, watch some sports this weekend. Everybody stay safe out there. The world is a crazy place. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Peace out.